It's rotten in the state. I could say something is rotten in the state of Britain, but it applies all over. Metastasised rot. People everywhere are daily made angrier, more scared of each other, when they would do better to be angry with the rotten state and the rotten state we're in on account of it. Build back better. Remember that codswallop. Nothing gets better. Instead, crisis follows crisis, war follows war, erosion of freedom follows erosion of freedom. It's plain to anyone who's looking that the pitiful leaders, puppeticians, cause the problems and then offer pre-prepared solutions that benefit only them and those pulling their strings. Are you as free as before? As free as you want to be? Are you happy? Are you well? Are you confident about your children's future? And if not, why not? Why would you put up with this rotten state? We're told we live in a world of technological and pharmaceutical solutions to all ills. We're also told war is peace. It's all lies and doublespeak. I say it's unmistakable and undeniable that something somewhere has gone badly wrong, probably long ago, and that a succession of unwanted leaders only make matters worse. We're offered and then made to endure the worst possible leaders at the worst of times. For years now, the craven mouthpieces of the state have pushed a relentlessly anti-human agenda. American author Eric Hoffer said in The True Believer that no one can be honourable unless he honours mankind. People, we are told, fellow human beings, are the ultimate problem, requiring the ultimate solution, which is to say fewer of us, save the planet, and to hell with the people alive on it here and now. Some of the richest and therefore most influential people talk casually about there being too many of us alive in the world at one time. How dare they? Who are these people who stand in judgment, presuming to make decisions about who has a right to be here? They preach the need for smaller, colder, hungrier lives for all of us from the decks of super yachts and the steps of private jets. Global population reduction has been an objective of the West since at least the 1970s. And I do mean at least. Henry Kissinger drove such an agenda while advising US President Gerald Ford. He said that population control policy requires both high-level attention and continuing review and updating. It observes that US efforts must be undertaken in such a way as to minimise criticism. It's been there in the background or even in the foreground ever since. Population reduction equals anti-human. Anyone who says that fewer people are the solution to the problem is a psychopath. We've somehow enabled an environment, an ecosystem in which psychopaths thrive and prosper. Agenda 2030 is in part the continuation of the same Malthusian eugenicist attitudes that are never far away, final solutions. It's an agenda that is anti-human almost by definition, given that achievement of the global goals of Agenda 2030 will likely lead to billions of deaths by starvation and by the pestilence and chaos that travel alongside man-made hunger. Birth rates are falling all over the world already and have been for generations. Too few babies are born, and so indigenous populations are disappearing. In the 1960s, Americans were having on average 3.65 children. By now it's 1.66. And still the powers that be insist there are too many of us. People are the problem, we're told. People are the problem right enough, but not the billions at the bottom of the pyramid, rather the few thousands at the top. Since 2020, we've been made to listen to talk of a great reset, a new world order led by Davos man and his pampered ilk. There's something horribly casual about all of this, a casual disregard for human life, a casual disregard for humanity itself. The implicit message we're fed is that since there are too many people, too many of the wrong sort of people at least, that many of those people are therefore expendable.
Businesses are for sale.
As a consequence, life has got cheap, or even cheaper than before. What's a few 100,000 men and boys cold in the clay of Ukraine? What's a few tens of thousands of women and children in Gaza? Our leaders like war. We can tell this because they keep pouring the fuel of money onto the fires of wars burning now in Ukraine, in the Middle East and elsewhere. Our economies literally thrive on death and destruction, courtesy of the military-industrial complex. They talk blithely about more war with Russia, with China, with Iran, with North Korea. Peace has been made a dirty word. And so there's talk too of fresh armies, bigger armies, more bodies. There's talk too of civil war all over the West. internecine strife, civil unrest, stoked by those that thrive and seek to gain from chaos. Mass migration around the world is a symptom of the metastasising cancer of chaos. People have been on the move from countries ruined by Western interference, ruined by invasion, by bombing, by engineered regime change. As the people up and move, our rotten leaders respond to the upheaval by throwing open the doors, dissolving borders, defaming indigenous populations as intolerant in the face of the arrival of strangers, their arrival by the millions, sowing more chaos. For years now, decades, we the people all over the world have been put on edge, set at each other's throats. Black against white against brown, Christian against Muslim against Jew. People bleed and die, homes and businesses burn. The rich just get richer and the powerful just gain more power. On the eve of Britain's entry into the First World War, Foreign Secretary Sir Edward Grey uttered his famous line, "The lamps are going out all over Europe. We shall not see them lit again in our lifetime." Grey was going blind then, so that it's not clear which descending darkness he was referring to, but he saw darkness coming just the same. As a consequence of disregard for the sanctity of every human life, we're surrounded by a gathering darkness. The casual, anti-human nature of our leaders and of the states they profess to lead, states made rotten by our leaders' corruption, is undeniable and unavoidable. Something is rotten in the state, and the stink of it comes from our leaders. A fish rots from the head, as they say. In search of the source of the stink, we shouldn't look from side to side at each other, but up above, among the so-called elite. They would have us lose sight of what it really means to be human and alive. Instead of valuing one another, the possibilities therein, they would prefer that we fear one another and so make that happen. Canadian anthropologist Wade Davis said, "The myriad cultures of the world make up a web of spiritual life and cultural life that envelops the planet and is as important to the well-being of the planet as indeed is the biological web of life." In a talk he gave in 2010, he told his audience that at the time they were born, there were 6,000 languages spoken on the planet, but that by then, by 2010, only half of those survived. Every 2 weeks or so, a language dies, apparently. An elder dies, and with him or her is lost forever a whole way of comprehending reality. Davis said every language is not just a vocabulary and a grammar, but rather a flash of the human spirit. He said every language is an old-growth forest of the mind, a watershed, a thought, an ecosystem of spiritual possibilities. We should be better than we're being made now. Davis speaks about the Kogi people of Colombia who regard themselves as the elder brothers of the world and see us, the younger, unwise brothers, responsible for destroying the world. The so-called Green Agenda is the industrialised destruction of the world, right enough. UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organisation, records the stuff of intangible cultural heritage around the world, rather than things that can be touched, architecture, artefacts, art. The intangibles are what people know and only carry in their heads and hearts. So, folklore, cuisine, customs, beliefs, traditions, knowledge, language. With every single human being lost or left unborn, we lose something else intangible, which is their contribution, great or small. Any man's death diminishes me, for I am involved in mankind. Instead of the poet's kindly thoughts, inclusive in the true and uncorrupted sense of the word, we are given to believe that fewer people is better, that less of us is more. This is a sinister and insidious philosophy, a bitter seed sown, and we're already reaping the harvest. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. I fail to see how anyone could look at our world now and say it's on the path to a good place. I fail to see how anyone could look at our leaders and say they are the ones to follow to that good place. Corrupt trees and evil fruit, that's what they are, and that's what we get. In this 21st century world of Agenda 2030 and the rest of the anti-human agenda, we're growing more and more casual about the prospect. In fact, what our leaders evidently regard as the necessity that the planet be rid of billions of us once and for all. I'm sickened by constantly hearing about the deaths of children, whether it be in ones and twos and threes, or by the tens of thousands. Children dying is what happens when society is rendered anti-human at every level. Here's the thing. If the anti-humanists get their way, if they inflict upon us their one-size-fits-all, top-down, all-powerful, all-controlling, one-world government, we will have been rendered into a homogenous monoculture, denied our individuality and our humanity. If they meet their objectives, we will be fewer, we will be poorer, and we will have been remade in their empty image, the image of those who see themselves as nothing less than gods, and we as nothing more than dots on a spreadsheet of profit. Wade Davis said something else about how the other people of the world are not failed attempts at being us, that on the contrary, every culture is a unique set of answers to the question of what it means to be human and alive. If we would save the world, it will entail endeavouring to see each other as parts of the solution. If we would save the world, we will have to save every last one of us.